We're locked in on the red and gold.
What a run by George Kittle!
And we're off and running here at the Santa Clara Hilton across the street from Levi's Stadium. Larry Krueger joined by Lorenzo Neal, the future Hall of Fame fullback, Tim Jordan and Mark Grandy on the controls here on 95.7 The Game. And, of course, we are brought to the Kickoff Show presented by Habas Law. You've been wronged. Habas Law will fight to make it right. Call 1-800-INJURED or visit habaslaw.com, HABBASLAW.com, habaslaw.com. Well, good to see you, man. How are you?
Hey, I'm great, Larry. It's good to be seen. It's another Sunday. It's football season, and we're here. And now we're starting to get in the thick of things, Larry. If the table is getting set, you're starting to see teams that make their moves and make their push. This is that meat. This is when playoffs are me. This is when you're going and you're jockeying for positions. November and December, this is the heart of the season, and this is when champions are made. November and December, you know they're going to get after it.
Well, it is football weather here in Santa Clara today. Clear and cool, and it's going to be just a perfect day for NFL football. And the Niners, of course, kicked this thing off at 1:05 with Baker Mayfield and Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in town. Niners are 6-3. They're 13-point favorites. The Bucs roll in after a big one-sided win over Tennessee last week. They are 4-5. And let's just get right into it, Lo. I mean, what do you think? I mean, what's the key to victory today for the 49ers against this Tampa Bay team in your mind?
It's always the same week in and week out. No, people want to say, God, what new twist has it got? What is the new? How are you going to structure this game? And what are you going to say that's going to be different? It's simple. It's block and tackle. It's simple. The offense, you got to realize, defensively, last several weeks when the Niners were struggling, they weren't tackling well. They wasn't getting off the field. They didn't get off on third down. They weren't creating turnovers. When you watch them the last several weeks, the way that they played, that's why you didn't have the defense. You see, defensive coordinator comes down to the field. All the things that were going on in defense. Then you think about special teams. Give up a punt return at the end of the game last week, 2 weeks ago, that caused that game against when you're playing against the Cincinnati Bengals. So you think about what's happened to them against Cleveland. You know, you get 4 first downs in the fourth quarter, and 3 of the 4 came in the last drive. Then you look at special teams. You missed the field goal. Then offense, you think about what's been going on with these losses. Purdy wasn't great. Purdy wasn't pretty. You saw the inconsistency, creating new line of scrimmage, the run game, guys, injuries, all those different things. So now you ask me, what is it going to take? It's going to take block and tackle. So I think now you're going to see this team. They're starting to play. Guys are getting healthy. That's it. It's a very, very simple formula for the 49ers. If you block and tackle and play the way that you're willing to play and the way that you're capable of playing offense and defensively, you win this game.
It's funny. I think you make a great point on the missed tackles. I mean, I was looking at the missed tackle number for the Niners, and, you expect some missed tackles in week 1, right? Week 1 because you haven't played a lot of football, and the regulars don't play a lot in the preseason. Sure enough, Niners go to Heinz Field. They missed 7 tackles, even though they destroyed the Steelers that day. Week 2 against the Rams, they missed 8. Okay, so now you're starting to settle into the season. They only missed 3 against the Giants. They missed 4 against the Cardinals. They only missed 2 against Dallas. So at that point, they're riding high. They're 5-0. They're winning games. And then came the Cleveland game. They missed 10 tackles that day. Then came the Minnesota night in Minnesota against Cousins. They missed 9 tackles that day. And then they missed 13 against Cleveland. And last week against Jacksonville, to your point, the Niners tackled much better. It was much cleaner. They only had 7 missed tackles. Yeah. Why is it that, as the team gets fatigued, it seems like the missed tackle numbers go up? I mean, and guys that you wouldn't expect in missed tackles, like Fonga and Greenlaw, were really falling off tackles in that Cincinnati game.
A lot of times what happens, guys start to press, they go for the big hit, or they said, okay, they stop their feet, they don't hit through and run through the guys, and now they're in space. And so once they drop their head, now you arm tackle. And that's what happens. Play defense. Average 16 tackles a game my senior year. I was an All-American defense. Larry, and I used to like to get after it. I wish if I could go back in time, Larry, I would have stayed linebacker, because when you were a linebacker, your eyes is up like Michael Singletary. I played middle linebacker, Larry. I used to see where it's at. Close right, close left, see what the tight end is. I know where they're closing. And then I said, okay, let me focus on my job. And that's the thing that you do as a linebacker. When you talk about linebackers missing tackles, Because it's so easy, Larry, to drop your head when you're going in to make the tackle. You drop your head, and now a guy just slides a little bit out of the way, and now you have to arm tackle, and that's what happens. Guys want to make sure they get them down, and they arm tackle, and they drop their head. So it's fundamentals. So that's what happens. But like you called it, fatigue makes guys start to drop their head. Fatigue make guys not tackle as well because they're tired, and those are some of the reasons why when you get tired and when you're not in right position, you drop your head, you arm tackle, and guys warm through arm tackles. And when that happens, you move the sticks. Now, it takes a little bit out of your defense because your offense is up on third down. They're thinking, okay, you're going to get a stop. They're standing up, getting ready to go on the field, think it's going to be a punt. And all of a sudden, they got to go back and sit down because of the fact you converted on those thirds down. So it takes the cell, not just takes the air out of the defense, but it also takes the air out of the offense.
What'd you think of last week's win over Trevor Lawrence and the Jags? I mean, the Niners clear in the beginning of that game, when Lawrence went drop back to pass, he had some time to throw, but he looked thoroughly confused by what the 49ers were doing, defensively, and he was holding the ball, and sure enough, the rush got to him. But what'd you think of the win over Jacksonville? What was the key to that game?
I think it was fundamental football. I think when you look at what the Niners did defensively and schematically, they said, okay, we know Trevor wants to get the ball out of his hands. Let's sit on these zones. Let's sit on these quick outs. Let's play outside contain and say, okay, let's force guys to the middle of the field and see where they're at. Let's make sure the guys squeeze down. And so then when you start looking for the second and third read, that's when the defensive line started putting pressure. And then Trevor had to take his eyes off downfield because he had to move out of the pocket. So I thought that Wilkes did a great job of saying, guys, let's take away the quick throws, a la what teams were doing to the Niners, making the Purdy hold onto the ball. That's what they did to Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is he gets the ball out of his hands almost faster than any quarterback in the league because he understands the nuance of it. If you can get the ball out of your hands quick, you make the defense have to scramble and make the defense have to commit. So now the Niners, since they understood where he was going to with the ball with his first and second read, they were able to take it away, and then that defensive front got after him.
They made so much, the media made so much of Steve Wilkes' seat. You know, he left the booth and he went down onto the sidelines. And it's funny because Shanahan was like, hey, guys, you're making way more of this than there is.
Agreed.
Wilkes was like, guys, you're making way more of this than there is. I asked Steve, I said, Steve, did your being there on the sideline make the coverage tighter? Did you being there on the sideline make defensive linemen stay on, not come off blocks or come off blocks more successfully? Did you being on the sideline make nobody miss any tackles?
Right.
And he laughed, and he's just like, of course not. So what is, you've been in the fray.
Yeah.
And everybody's different. I mean, Dan Quinn coaches in the booth. Vic Fangio coaches in the booth. Some coaches, usually with a defensive backfield history to them, like that bird's eye view so they can see all 22 in real time. Other guys want to feel it. Robert Saleh wanted to feel it. D'Amico Ryans wanted to feel it. These guys wanted to be on the sideline and in guys' faces.
Hallelujah, brother.
Yeah. What do you prefer? Is it? I mean, do you see an advantage to one or the other?
I see both cons and pros for both. When you're up top, like you said, in the box, now you can see the whole field. So now you're not distracted. You can look and say, okay, this is what they're giving me on first and second down. They're giving me a 4-2. They're playing too deep. They're playing single high safety on third down. So now you can make those mental notes, jot them down on your paper without distractions, without coaches coming up to you, without players, hey, coach, coming up, because now you're the DC. And so it's focused. You're doing a focus on what you see and starting to do things and game planning for the rest of the game. When you're kind of on the field, now you're just in the moment. You're saying, yeah, you can still see, but you don't understand. So you don't see maybe the other side. You don't see the field as good, but you're more engaged. You can tell the coaches, hey, look, get on this, guys, do those certain things. So I think it's just a preference what the coach wants. And, Shanahan, he's the head coach. If he's wanted Wilkes to come down, come down. But I don't think it had any bearing on how guys tackle. That's an attitude. It had nothing to do with how many missed tackles. That's an attitude. It has nothing to do with guys playing the right coverage. That's an attitude. It's just about doing your job and doing it with consistency. And so I think that was the biggest thing. Guy said, we're going to pay attention to detail. We're going to do the little things right. Because if you're playing inside technique, and all of a sudden, because you know that you're playing inside technique because you don't want to get beat out inside, now all of a sudden, if you take a false step and open up your inside leg where you're playing inside technique, now you give that gateway where the receiver now can get through the inside because you opened up a soft hip. So you gave him a way to go. So if your technique is sound, now you're backing straight up and you're making sure you're tough inside, so you force him to run through you. Those are little attention to detail. That's what I think that Wilks concentrated on. That's what the offense and defense concentrate. The little things. It's foot placement. It's head. It's hat and hands. It's doing those little things. That is how you win football games in the National Football League, Larry. Especially when you have this kind of talent that the 49ers have.
Well, and you know, it's to me, it's just such an illustration of how the NFL has become man's soap opera. You know, it's like we love the relationships.
Yes.
You know, Steve Wilks is on the sideline now, and oh my God! Now
it's too much.
I talked to Talanoa Fonga, and he said, "Hey, look, you know, too much has been made of it, but." It does streamline the communication, and there's no ambiguity to the message when it's delivered face-to-face, and sometimes the urgency doesn't get translated. Or sometimes, you know, he's speaking through Johnny Holland, and maybe those linebackers aren't feeling Steve's urgency on some of these calls. But to me, last week was not at all about that.
Right.
Last week was about the action. You know, the old coach used to tell me, hey, you know what? Pass coverage, the key to pass coverage is pass coverage.
Yeah.
It ain't about the X's and the O's. It's about the Jimmies and the Joes.
That.
And he's like, you know what? It's about people. It's about players. And I asked Kyle Shanahan coming out of the Cincinnati game, going into the bye week, I said, you said your team looked slow. You said your team looked tired. Well, the bye week's going to come. They're going to get refreshed. Where are you going to add speed? And he's like, you got any ideas? And I'm like, well, you know, he kind of put me back on my heels. I'm like, well, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing Danny Gray out there. He creates some speed. And he's like, that's one guy. But what I'm talking about is overall team speed. But sure enough, even though he sloughed off my question last week about team speed, that's exactly what he did. He took 4.65 Isaiah Oliver off the field. Oliver played 3 snaps last week. He put Ambry Thomas, who ran a 4.4 flat coming out of Michigan, at the outside cornerback spot and moved Lenore inside. They added speed on the back end. Yeah. Surprise, surprise. Faster guys with better cover guys. And sure enough, the coverage was tighter. What I saw in this Jacksonville game was when Lawrence did complete a pass, there was Warner. There was Lenore. There was Mooney. There were the Niner defenders were right on them, and there was no run after the catch to speak of. And this is coming from a Jaguar team where they got a ton of weapons.
No question.
That all of them can run.
Yeah, Larry, I tell you right now, I don't like when you're going and talking to Shanahan like that. I'm going to tell you personally, I don't like it because he might take you from me. I can't have that, Larry. I need you here right next to me, buddy. You're over here telling me you need speed. And what does he do? Good God Almighty, he goes out and gets speed. Not only that, he goes and gets some more speed. He brings in a guy named Chase. You know,
that's right. And Chase obviously made an impact too.
Made an impact. So you go and do those things. You got faster. You went and got more talent. You went and got more speed. You move guys out and say, hey, look, we're going to go. So, man, be careful because Shanahan might come get you, all right?
Seriously, I feel like going up to him and said, hey, you know, you sloughed off the question and then you stole my idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You took the speed concept and you put more speed. But I mean, that's what it's about.
Oh, yeah.
You know, were the Niners going to be better up front with Chase Young? Yeah, of course they were going to be better with Chase Young. But the problem on the back end against Cincinnati was everybody was freaking open.
Yeah.
And the space was eternal. Now, the one question coming into today's game on the Niners side defensively is the screen passes. The 49ers still, you know, you can say it has a little bit to do with the wide 9 and their D linemen are getting up the field so aggressively that they're not turning and pivoting and hauling back downfield to make a play in the screen game. Maybe it's some of the zones that they're playing. Guys are a little bit out of position. I asked Wilks this week, I'm like, what is the key to defending the screen game? And he's like, you know, I don't want to speak out of turn, but
retrace.
He goes, you just got to whoop that ass. I said, really? Really? That's his take. But that actually, what his take was, is that it comes down to effort. It comes down to desire.
Right.
You played in the league, and you probably caught a number of screen passes.
Oh, yeah. It's a feel.
What's the key on the other side of the ball, looking at it from the defenser's perspective, to stopping the screen game? Because I guarantee you Tampa's going to throw a bunch of screens today to Rachaad White.
Without a doubt, it's a feel. It's a feel on both sides of the ball. When I'm playing defense, and I say, okay, look, if I'm watching my guy up front, I know who's the boy dogs, and I know who can get after. When I played Mike linebacker, I had a guy named Matt Mahoney, Russell Glassby. Those guys, I knew they were going to get after and get feel. And then I had a guy named Nur, who wasn't as quick and usually doesn't beat any guys. So you're playing that linebacker position, and you see this guy, he's let him go 1-2, you see him just kind of turn to the side. You know, read screen. You're saying, okay, whatever side I'm turning, I got to go opposite side there because I'm feeling what he's doing to my guys up front. That's when linebackers have to say, okay, I'm going to look at this, I'm going to dissect this, and I know that they're turning them out inside or whatever way, that screen is coming. And that's when you got to get downhill. And as a defensive lineman, after you go down and you say, man, something feels right, you got to retrace, and you got to get back upfield. Or either you got to say, like Jim was saying, either you got to beat the guy and kick some butt. What he's saying, if you're through it, if you commit, then I got to go ahead and continue at the quarterback. I got to get my hands up to try to block the screen. And if I know that I'm too late and I know he's too far away, then I got to retrace. So it's two different things. Sometimes you get caught in that gray area. So that's what you have to do as a defender. You have to feel, and as a linebacker, you got to understand what the teams are doing because you're playing that wide nine, because guys want to get their sacks, because guys want to get upfield. The offense says, okay, they're going to be coming. I got it. They're going to pin their ears back. Let these guys go, and let's get this game going. So offensively, they know what they're doing. Defensively, you got to make sure that you feel that and understand how to retrace and get your hands up and knock balls down.
It is going to take a combined effort, offense, defense, and special teams in a big way to get this win today against Tampa. Let's talk a little bit about the Niners offense. 49er offense, it's a lot of Christian McCaffrey. It's a lot of Brandon Aiyuk. Now they've got Debo back. They've got Trent Williams back. The Niners have really, really good numbers when they have Debo and Trent. In fact, the Niners are averaging 33 points a game when they have Trent Williams and Debo Samuel on the field. So they're back out there today. Let's talk a little bit about this side of things, because there's two things that stand out about this Buccaneers defense. They're number one in the red zone. So they bend, but they don't break. They get to the red zone, they get a stop. They keep you out of the end zone. That's been one of their keys this year. The other thing that Tampa does is they have 16 takeaways.
Wow.
They take the football away, and they do it consistently. And to me, Lo, the big question on the Niner offense against this Tampa defense is Todd Bowles loves to blitz. Is he going to blitz Purdy? Purdy's got 8 touchdowns and 1 pick this year against the blitz. If you're Bowles, do you blitz Purdy and give him defined reads, or do you drop extra guys into coverage and force them to be accurate?
Yeah, I drop guys into coverage and say, hey, look, I'm gonna make you read this thing out, and then I hope my front four, whatever I'm bringing, I hope they can get pressure on him. You come after this guy, you got too many guys in Aiyuk, and you got guys like Kittle, and you know who you got, McCaffrey, and other guys in Debo. They're gonna win their one-on-one coverage. They're just too quick. They're too elusive, so it's hard. If you go ahead and do that and you bring coverage and you do some cover zero, the Niners are going to beat you. And they're going to beat you because they have too many weapons. You got too many one-on-ones. So if I'm on the opposite side of that, I'm Tampa Bay, I sit back and I say, I'm going to make you read this thing out. I'm going to make you hold onto the ball. I'm going to bend, but I won't break.
Big change on the Niner offensive line. John Feliciano starts today at left guard for Aaron Banks. Now, he started last week as well. Banks is battling the turf toe. Have you ever had turf toe?
Ooh, that's no fun.
Yeah, turf toe sounds very benign, but it ain't. It can be like 2 weeks, or it can be career ending. I mean, it seriously is. It sounds very like, turf toe. You'll be fine. You can play with it. No, you can't play with it. And if it doesn't heal right, you won't ever play again.
Yeah, it's like gout on steroids. If you have that gout and you're out there listening, you older folks got that gout in your feet. Every time you touch it, you just think about having that big toe and you got that turf toe. And every time you put some pressure on and you try to push off, it bends back. And, oh, Lord, have mercy. It just aches, goes through your body. So what do? You get that shot and get that needle, and they start hitting you there. and they move it all around. Larry, they're moving it all around, getting into that toe, that joint. You know, okay, you're able to go and play. But then the calcium it starts build up. It starts to swell even more because you're injecting that toe, and it's just swelling. You're like, and it's become so painful. So in a couple hours, you fight through it. But then it starts to wear them ligaments and everything else now. So you can't get the shot every week. You got to take some time off. But every time you on that toe, every time you push, and all of a sudden I'm feeling pretty good. But then I got a guy bull rush, and I got to go back and plant that foot. And that big toe just starts screaming on you. It actually starts screaming. You're like, I can't do this. So it's really tough. You can put some heel lifts in your foot. You can put some, they get those foot feelings. You can put a little steel there to kind of stop it from bending. But turf toe, man, it is something, bro, that's just a nagging injury. Hate it.
Do I dare ask, have you ever had gout?
Oh, no, not the gout yet. But my dad, he told me that gout. He told me it hurts really bad, so I had to compare it to gout and turf toe. How about that?
They call it King Henry VIII disease. So you're drinking too much wine, eating too rich of foods. There you go. You can get the gout. If you do get gout, drink the cherry juice, natural cherry juice. It will help gout.
Look at you, old school. Yeah. I can appreciate that. Real quickly,
real cherry juice, though. Not
the concentrate. Get the cherry juice.
Get cherry juice.
Or eat cherries, and it takes that inflammation.
Takes that gout away.
Look at you, man. You're old school. Okay, you've been hanging out with the brothers. Anyway, as I digress, I'll tell you right now, what you said earlier, I just laughed about it when you talked about this is men's soap opera, football's turning into that. How about all the outrage that you heard in them? Oh, Christian McCaffrey didn't get his touchdown, so everyone's outraged that they put him in because they were winning that game so bad. And at the end of the fourth quarter, they go in to try to keep the record or break the record.
What'd you think of that? There were a lot of people that were very critical of Shanahan.
They were. I'm like,
I would say this.
Look,
I want to hear what you have to say, but my whole thing on it is, if you wanted to get him the record, why didn't you have
earlier?
First of all, why didn't you throw it to him earlier on the juice touchdown? But beyond that, if you really want to get him the record on that last series, have Jawan Jennings run a 12-yard stop route, throw it low to him. Throw it to him at the 2, and then take 2 or 3 shots from the 2 with McCaffrey. The Niners started feeding McCaffrey every single play from like the 22-yard line, and he was just getting crushed because the defense knew he was going to touch it on every snap. How about get to the doorstep and then go hand McCaffrey the ball 2 or 3 times?
Yeah.
Then at least you can go over the top. You can do a little trick play. Asking him to bust it loose in the open field against a defense that knows he's getting the ball was the most futile thing I think I've ever seen. And then the other thing is, most Niner fans would say that if the Niners are going to win in the playoffs, they got to have Christian McCaffrey available in January. And you're going to choose some record over having your most important offensive weapon being healthy. Very questionable decision-making there by Shanahan.
Yeah, there was a song that said, I feel like busting loose. I feel like busting loose. But here's the deal, though. Larry, I get it, and I understand it. But here's the thing. What did that young man feel? Have you asked Christian McCaffrey? He wanted the record.
And he loved the fact that they
gave him a shot. And that's the point. Yeah. Even if he didn't get it. And that's what people don't understand. And that's why you talked about this is like the male soap opera in the media.
Oh,
he shouldn't have do that. You don't do that. Embarrass a team or McCaffrey gets hurt. Guess what? He doesn't mind. It's the sacrifice that you're willing to take because you're getting ready to be legendary. You talk about different things. Larry, they're going to put your face up on 95.7 The Game because you know more football than you know. They're going to have your statue, and it's going to be like, and you're not going to be arrogant about it. But yet and still, there's things you've done that you're like, man, that people talk about, what about Larry? It's got this and this. You don't necessarily need it, but as humans, we thrive. It makes you feel good to know that you've done something. McCaffrey has a chance to be here. Here's McCaffrey, and guess what? When you look it up 20, 30, 40 years, this name's there. So I get it, people. I understand. You need him in the playoffs.
I'm okay with it.
That's all.
They should have done it smarter.
The if and ands were butts and candies and nuts. We don't have a Merry Christmas, Larry.
That's an excellent point. Hey, one more thought before we break in this first segment. Let's talk about this Tampa Bay defense.
Let's do it.
As I said, they're 16th. They got 16 takeaways. They're number 1 in the red zone. They're banged up on the corner. Carlton Davis didn't play last week against Tennessee. Ryan Neal's a little dinged up. Josh Hayes is a little dinged up. But this is a really interesting line, Lo. I mean, Vita Vea and Antoine Winfield. When the Niners smoked Tampa last year 35-7, Vita Vea and Antoine Winfield basically didn't play. Vea played, I think, a snap or two in the beginning. Winfield didn't play at all. Winfield is their best playmaker on the back end. He'll force fumbles, he'll recover fumbles, he'll intercept passes, he gets his hands on a number of passes. To me, he's a guy you got to watch out for if you're Brock Purdy today. The other thing, they got Devin White and Levante David on that second level. These guys will rush the passer, they'll go delayed blitzes. But I want to ask you about this defensive front. You got Vita Vea. You got the rookie Kalijah Cansey, who moves incredibly well. Then you got Lorenzo Hall, or Logan Hall from Houston, who's a 285, 290-pound defensive end. And then you got Shaq Barrett, who's just an absolute burner off the edge. Yeah. Robert Beal kind of mocked up Shaq Barrett in practice for the Niners offense this week in the scout team. This is a very, very good defensive line. I mean, last week we talked about Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen. They were terrific. Right. Those are two guys. Now you got Vita Vea, who last week got a sack. They lined him up at defensive end or defensive right end. He got a sack against Tennessee against Will Levis. Kalijah Cansey is kind of like a poor man's Aaron Donald. This is a really good line. I got a major concern whether the 49er offensive line is dinged up as they are and not being great in pass protection. Can they stand up today against Tampa?
Well, they're going to have to because they got to get this win. I think when you talk about guys, Davis, and you took at Shaq Barrett. I think that some of these guys on Tampa, I think their defense is ferocious. They can get after you. I think they play in spurts sometimes, the linebackers. If they get past White and stuff, they throttle down. At times they're like, bam, they'll go, and then they just kind of throttle down. So I like what they do, but I think that you can beat them up. I think you can wear them out. You keep them on that field. You continue to keep that offense off the field, and you just wear them out. That's what I think Tampa plays at a high level, very, very high. I think the Niners' success is to wear these guys out. Winfield, hey, that's good stock, good seed. Dad, you played Major League Baseball, was an awesome player too. So when you think about him, this guy, he's a safety. He'll hit you. He knows where to be around the ball. I like what he brings to the table.
This is not Dave Winfield's kid. This is Antoine Winfield Jr. Remember, his daddy played for Minnesota on the corner, the former Buckeye.
Yes. There you go. That's my bad. But I just think that he is physical. He'll get after you. You're absolutely right. And how do you go after these guys? You got to wear these guys out because Tampa's defense, they are a formidable opponent, and it's going to be interesting to see how the Niners come out and to execute and put pressure on them because you don't want them to. You want to keep them on the field, and I think that's the key to success to slow down this Tampa's defense.
Big day today for Spencer Burford. He's got 20 pressures allowed thus far. That's 10th most in the NFL, and he's going to have his hands full for sure. All right, let's take a timeout. Up next, we'll update some scores in the morning slate from the games going on in the 10 o'clock action. JD's going to join us at noon. Later on today, we'll hear from Peter King. Up next, though, we'll talk about the Niner defense and flip the card against Baker Mayfield and this Buccaneer offense. We're down here at the Santa Clara Hilton. It's the Kickoff Show presented by Habas Law. You've been wronged. Habas Law will fight to make it right. Call 1-800-INSURED or visit habaslaw.com. We got more straight ahead on 95.7 The Game.
November is a great time to get a new TV. Now that the top-rated brands like Samsung, LG, and Sony are at the lowest.
Now back to the Kickoff Show on 95.7 The Game.
And welcome back to the Kickoff Show. Larry Krueger and Lorenzo Neal. And we're here at the Santa Clara Hilton before the Niners take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's Week 11 in the NFL. And, of course, the Kickoff Show presented by Habas Law. You've been wronged. Habas Law will fight to make it right. Call 1-800-INJURED or visit habaslaw.com. That's HABBASLAW.com. habaslaw.com. We're going to talk a little bit and flip the card and talk a little bit about the Niner defense and the Buccaneer offense. But, well, let's run down some scores from Week 11 from the morning slate. A lot of interesting games. A lot of people had the Steelers beating the Browns today, but the Browns are up 10-0 at halftime. Cleveland's got the number one defense in the NFL. And, you know, expect to see a ton of running the football in that game. Yeah. But it's 10-0 Browns at half. Bears, Lions in Detroit. Detroit's up 14-10. Justin Fields is back in the lineup for the Bears, back from the 4-game injury with the right thumb. Bears say that they're going to stick with Justin Fields going forward. We'll see, because they're going to have a high pick in the draft. Lions have won 6 in a row inside the division, and they're up 14-10 at halftime. Packers and Chargers at Lambeau Field. Why is it that the Chargers always seem like they play down to their opponent?
They do.
It's 10-10. Chargers are 29-29 with Justin Herbert starting for them in the regular season. Yeah. And most people would agree that Herbert's a star, that he's a huge talent, and yet they're 500. And Green Bay, by the way, 1-5 against the number in the past 6 games. But they're at Lambeau. They're always pretty tough to beat at Lambeau, even in their down years, and it's 10-10.
Yeah, I'm really shocked. You're absolutely right. The Chargers played down the level of competition. I like Staley, met him a couple of times. A big go down to L.A. and sit and talk to the organization, and just, you know, here's a coach that people were high on, and great defensive, won a Super Bowl with the Rams. You know, now put him in a head coach situation, and for some reason, he's a defensive-minded guy. Their defense has been a sieve. Last week, it was a track meet watching them against Green Bay. Against the Detroit Lions. Detroit was able to put up 40-some points on them and just couldn't stop them at all, running through zones. Guys would not even touch. Watched a little bit of the Green Bay game this morning. They run a reverse, and no one even touches him into the end zone. So when you look at this Chargers team, you're absolutely right. When you have a quarterback of this magnitude and Justin Herbert that can score and throw the ball all over the field, and you're not winning, you're wasting some of those valuable years. At least try to get in the playoffs. At least show that you can play at a higher level with consistency. So they've been very definitely an underachieving team this year.
Kind of wonder about Brandon Staley's future. I mean, you got Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Derwin James. Yeah. And you got some of the best offensive weapons in the game, and they just can't get it done. So 10-10 Green Bay and the Chargers there.
How do you feel about this Denver team? But when you look at the Lions, what are you seeing? Are they a formidable opponent for the Niners? When you think about, everyone talks about the two teams, of course, the Niners. You talk about, what Philadelphia has been able to do. But are you serious? Do you think the Lions are a team to be reckoned with?
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, the Lions are coming. They've got a terrific offensive line. Penei Sewell, Frank Ragnow, Taylor Decker. I mean, that's the makings of a very good offensive line. And then, they're legit weapon-wise. Goff's played terrific in Detroit. They've got the home run threat in Jameson Williams. They've got a true number one receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown, the former Trojan. Sam Laporta, the Iowa tight end, has stepped in. He's been phenomenal. Aiden Hutchinson up front. I mean, they need more help for him. They lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to an injury. To me, and Emmanuel Mosley. To me, they're a year away.
Okay.
Because they don't have the back seven talent on defense and health-wise to run with the Niners and the Eagles. But they are undoubtedly, in my mind, the third best team in the NFC. And a year from now, I wouldn't be surprised if they went right on by the Niners and Eagles and were the preeminent team. But it's going to take another draft, another free agent class for them to get it going. They're not on the same talent level as Niners and Eagles.
And where do you see Niners then? So, okay, you look at the Eagles, okay, and you think what they've been able to do, even though they've had some close games. They lost to the Jets, but they're a team that they find a way to win. When you look at the Niners, you automatically now throw them back in number 2, or how are you looking at this NFC now?
Well, I do think the Niners are the second best team in the NFC. Based on who the heck else would you go with? I mean, Dallas is bad. Detroit, as I said, I think they're a year away.
What about Minnesota? You like what Dobbs is? What is he bringing to the table, in your opinion?
I like Dobbs. I think he'll lose today, but I like Dobbs. He's doing some nice things. But, I mean, Minnesota doesn't have a good defense. They don't stop the run. I mean, you can run on Minnesota. Their defense is not great. Now Kirk Cousins is done for the year. So I personally, once Cousins went out, I just put a line through Minnesota.
Can you run on the Niners? Do you think the Niners run defense is worth it? Do you think they're elite?
That's the big question right now, is how good are the 49ers against the run? They weren't good at the beginning of the year, but last week they took away Travis Etienne. I think today they're going to do a nice job against Rashad White. But
this is not a team that runs the ball.
Yeah,
is Tampa any good at run
Tampa Bay's 31st in the NFL running the ball.
I don't like Tampa's run offense. Now, they can throw the ball. I think he's going to have to get the ball out of his hand. It's going to be about what the quarterback
That's the big question, though. It's the run D. Can the Niners stop Lamar and Baltimore, the number one rush offense on Christmas? Can they stop Philly in a couple weeks with Swift and Gainwell? We know the Niners can stop. They stopped, the kid last week, Etienne, who was averaging about 3.9 a carry, and they kept him to 3.9 a carry.
Right.
But before that, I mean, Cincinnati wasn't running the ball well at all, and then they ran for 5.4 a carry against the 49ers.
And you played against even the team that you beat up on, Arizona. Arizona still had some success running the ball.
They did. The only reason they didn't stick with the run is they fell behind on the scoreboard. Yeah, right. Connor went for almost 5 yards a pop.
And that's my question to you. So when you look at it,
that's the Niners' weakness is how good are they, or that's what's still kind of TBD. We don't know what the Niners are defensively against the run.
Right. And far as throwing the ball, do you think that this is an elite pass rushing team? What have shown you thus far this year is Bosa now coming to his zone to chase this. When you look at this defense outside looking in and you're saying, okay, not taking my homework, being local radio here, what do you see far as them getting after the quarterback? Is this an elite pass rushing team? Now, I know the names says yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, what have you seen thus far this year?
I loved what I saw last week. They heated it up on Trevor Lawrence. They rushed 4. They didn't blitz. That was the one thing. Wilkes in the first 8 weeks of the year blitzed 28% of the time. Last week against Jacksonville, he blitzed 14% of the time. So he cut his blitz rate in half. And he played 4, and they played some 5-man fronts. They played some zone behind it. They mixed in some man coverage. I think, you're going to see kind of the combination of that today. I think you're probably going to see more zone today against Baker because the numbers say that Baker is got a QBR of 87.6 against man coverage. Against zone, that 87.6 drops to 48.8. So I think what you're going to see is what you saw a little bit last week. You're going to see more zone and the Niners rushing 4. I don't think you're going to see a lot of 5- and 6-man rushes. If you do, it will be a key third downs in the second half. I think they're going to try to get it done with their front 4. I thought the guy that we should have talked about last week that was absolutely monster for the first time all year was Javon Hargrave.
Yeah.
Hargrave was just a monster last week. He caused everything. I mean, he was forcing, he forced the pressure that got the pick. He's coming off blocks. He's in the backfield. He's penetrating. Yeah, I mean, he looks terrific. Which is run down the last couple scores here. Raiders and Dolphins in Miami. It's 14-13. Dolphins on top in that one. Antonio Pierce, by the way, 2-0. Giants lead the Commanders 14-9 in Washington. Washington's allowed 6 sacks to the Giants earlier this year at MetLife. Tommy DeVito going against Sam Howell in that game. Cowboys just beating up on the Carolina 17-3. The guy they say is on the hottest of hot seats is Frank Reich. He took over the play calling duties today from the offensive coordinator Thomas Brown. Bryce Young's been sacked 29 times. Jaguars up 13-0 on the Titans. That's Trevor Lawrence and Will Levis battling there. Texans lead the Cardinals 21-10. Kyler Murray against C.J. Stroud. And then this afternoon, Jets and Bills, Seahawks at Rams, Vikings and Broncos go tonight. Monday nighter, the game of the week, Eagles-Chiefs from Arrowhead, Kansas City, 2.5-point favorite. Very interesting week 11 around the league, and we'll update you on those scores before we get out of here today. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Niner D. What do you expect? I mean, Tampa Bay does not run the ball well. I went in the locker room this week and talked to a number of players. I said, what stands out to you about this Tampa offense? They're all like 13, which is Mike Evans, and then 14 on the crossers. He's like, which is Chris Godwin. So they got 2 different receivers. Last week it was Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram. Tons of speed. Guys that can literally, you can throw it over your head and they can beat you down the field. This week it's a different challenge. Evans is big, but with awesome ball skills. Godwin's got as good at ball skills as almost anybody. And the tight end, Otten's a pretty good little receiver as well. Pretty big receiver, actually.
Right.
So, I mean, to me, I'll ask you as a former player, I mean, would you rather go up against guys who are really fast that you got to give a little cushion to, but don't necessarily have the greatest ball skills, or would you rather go up against a duo like Godwin and Evans who, man, you could be draped all over them and they can still catch it?
Yeah, I'd rather have the latter of the two, because with these 2 guys, I'm going to take them away. I'm going to roll my coverage. I'm going to beat him up at the line, and I know he's physical, Mike Evans, but you got to find a way to beat him up. And you got to roll the coverage to him and say, he's not going to beat me. Because if you can frustrate him and make them say, okay, linebacker underneath, so take away that quick throw. Now he's jamming a guy at the line and says, okay, the pass rush got to get home. Mike Evans, he's got that, some QUIT in him, in my opinion. I think this guy can play. I think he's an elite ball handler, can catch the ball every high point because he's a big physical guy. But if he's not going, if you can keep him silent and beat him up and make the quarterback look away just by coverage and just dictate that, I don't think he comes off the line as hard. I don't think he's trying to go as hard. But if you can do that, but if you let this guy get loose, and if you start letting him make some catches, this guy can hurt you because he's a big physical guy, can make things happen. I beat him up today. I roll coverage to him. I say, look, we're going to shut him down, and let's see if Godwin can do it on a consistent basis, and then I'm going to light you up. I'm going to come after, Mayfield and hit this guy, because you can keep him in that phone booth. Don't let him get outside that phone booth. He wants to get outside and scramble. You keep him in that phone booth, and you say, let's get him with the pressure, and let's take Mike Evans away, and let's see how I beat you.
What do you think of Baker? Baker's got some pretty decent numbers. I mean, you think of Baker, 2.8 touchdown to interception ratio this year. That's 6th in the league. He's only been pressured on 28.6% of his dropbacks, which is also kind of middle of the road as far as the league's concerned. Baker's a smaller guy, but man, he's competitive. And even though he kind of throws from a lower angle, he doesn't seem like he gets passes batted down that much. I just think he's an underrated player. If you think this guy's a bad quarterback, he's going to show you that he's got more than that.
Yeah, and I think that Baker is an effort guy. He's a guy that wants to shut up the commentators. He wants to make sure that people don't forget about him, because he's the guy that everyone thinks is just a guy. And he's always have to live with that because he was highly sought after. Everyone thought that he was going to tear up the league, and he hasn't. So he's a guy that's always trying to search. He's a guy that's trying to show that he's better than what he is. And I'm just telling you, he's just a guy. He is not an elite quarterback. No, he's good. But he tries a little hard at times. He wants to show he can do it. I don't think he's a thermostat. I talk about thermostat and thermometer. There's two type of players, thermostat players and there's thermometer players. A thermometer, you can put it in someone's mouth and it just measure the temperature. A thermostat, you turn that thing up and down and it regulates temperature. Tom Brady, certain guys in this league, you're talking Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrows, you look at, certain guys, they're thermostats. They can freaking go up and down, but you look at the Chargers quarterback, you look at, Josh Allen, some of these quarterbacks, they're thermostats. They can regulate, take up, down, and that's what you want. I don't think that Baker is that type of quarterback. He's just going to go ahead and this is what he is. At times he can show you something, but I just don't think he's a great elite quarterback.
No, I don't either, but I'll tell you the one thing that's pretty clear when you look at the numbers, he's taking care of the football. The Bucs have just 8 turnovers this year. That's second best in the NFL. They do not turn it over. They do not beat themselves. At least they haven't thus far this year. They don't have much of a run game. They're 31st in the NFL running the ball. Rashad White is not going to bust you for big runs, but they'll throw it to him out of the backfield. Right. And the combination of two receivers that have outstanding ball skills in Godwin and Evans. Evans has got great size. And then you've got, the back out of the backfield who can catch it. He had a 56-yard screen pass that he went for 6 last week. To me, the one thing that's going to be interesting is, are the 49ers going to get frustrated if they can't get turnovers against this Tampa Bay team? Because Baker is shown discipline this year to not fold under the pressure. He's not handing the ball over in mass. They're taking good care of it.
Yeah, and that's why I look for the Niners, look for Wilkes to come after him and do it this way. You say play some man-to-man coverage, not on necessarily receivers. You're going to jam them and play over-the-top help, and you're going to jam them, so you're doing that. But I'm telling you, with White, this is where you say, okay, I'm putting my linebacker and make some man coverage on him to say, okay, because we know that they're going to try to set up screens, do some different things. So I want my guy pinning him and follow him to the bathroom when he goes. So that's what you want to do. And make sure you're taking away that screen game and doing those things. And, so at times I think that you come after him, but at times you make sure that the running back has to read if they're blitzing. A lot of the green dogs, it's because now make the running back have to stay in the block, make him think that you're coming. Also, you guard him. So now you take away the screens, keep the guy, keep him confused all day. I think you're going to see a lot of that from this Niners defense, but you're right. He's taking care of the ball. He's not turning over the ball. And that's when he becomes dangerous because now teams have to say, okay, we know this guy's not going to give us one. He's going to take the long drive, get the ball out of his hand, keep moving, keep the chains moving. And that's what a guy like Purdy does. And that's when Purdy's playing at his best. Kyle Shanahan talked about him staying ahead on the count, staying ahead of sticks, winning on first and second down. And now he just stays within himself. That's when Purdy plays well. And that's what Baker Mayfield does. He's that same type of guy that says, look, I'm going to take what the defense gives me. I'm not going to necessarily take all these big shots, hold the ball for 7-step drop and try to throw the home run. I'm going to take it. And that's how you be successful. And that's why Baker Mayfield is having success because he's taking what the defense gives him. And he's been patient.
If you look at the numbers, the teams are playing a ton of zone against Baker. He's seen man-to-man on just 33% of the dropbacks. That's the second lowest rate in the league. But zone coverages, he's looking at zone 66% of his dropbacks. That's the second highest in the league. When you see those numbers, what does it tell you? Why are teams, do you think, playing zone against Baker and not man-to-man?
Because he knows when it's man-to-man, he's got those big receivers. So you got man-to-man against a big receiver, he can throw the 50-50 ball. He can throw the back shoulder ball. He can throw it up and let this guys go get it. Too. He can take off and run because now the defenders turn their back to the quarterback. So it creates a lot of lanes in man-to-man. So that's what you risk when you play a lot of man-to-man against a quarterback that's mobile, a quarterback that can run, but also a quarterback that understands and he has big receivers, Godwin, and that he can get the ball to. So that's why you sit back and you play zone. But you still can play zone and still bump a guy at the line. You can still play zone and then boom, turn him, ride him, and then ride him into another zone where they're playing over the top. So you can do a lot of things and disrupt and make it look like man, but you're playing zone. That's where your DB keeps his eyes in the backfield, so he's jamming him at the line, but he's riding him to a zone, but he's still watching where the quarterback is. If the quarterback gets outside and want to run, then he passes him off into the next zone. So you still can disguise a lot of different things and still play zone coverage against the running quarterback.
You know, one thing to look for in this game, you know, if you look at the receptions and you look at the way the ball distribution for Tampa Bay, Evans gets the most action, right? He's their number one guy. Chris Godwin gets the ball a ton. Then they also have Trey Palmer, Raheem Jarrett, the rookie, and Devin Tompkins. And those guys can all flat out scoot. They all can run, but they don't get the ball a lot.
Right.
It's like they use those guys as decoys to run off the coverage to create the room. And I'm not saying you don't want to defend these guys, because if they're open deep, Baker's got plenty of arm to get it there. But you got to understand what they're trying to do to you. They're trying to run off the coverage to create the room underneath for Godwin, for Otten, for Evans. And the majority of the time, Baker's looking for those three guys.
Oh, no question. And that's where the guys up front got to get home. Because when you're playing zone and you have some deep routes that's going off to take guys out of the mix, I get that. But that's why you went out and got Chase. That's why you have Bolson. That's why Armstead and the Gravedigger. Those guys are going to have to be heavy in this guy's face to make him get off his spot. Get Baker Mayfield off his spot for 1, 2, keep him inside the phone booth, but now make him take his eyes off the field, take his eyes off the downfield, and now he's trying to say, I got to survive in this phone booth. I got to survive and maneuver in here to still look down the field. So look for the Niners to keep him in that phone booth, but I think the pressure, because of the fact they want to find those zones and get those guys clear routes for him to be able to throw it to those underneath guys, I think the defensive front today is going to have to play huge.
You know, one of the things that was interesting, last week, Chase Young played his first game. I had a chance to talk to him earlier this week, and, you know, I was talking to him about the matchup with Tampa, and he's like, hey, you know, whatever they got, they're going to have to contend with us. He gives that Niner D-line a swagger that they may have been lacking. And, you know, it's interesting. He shows up for 1 week, and Nick Bosa is the NFC's Defensive Player of the Week in the league.
You love it.
And you know, it's like when you have it's like, why have a fancy security system if you're going to leave your garage door open, right? I mean, that's what I look at the Niners. They had Hargrave and Armstead and Bosa, and then, oh, yeah, we're going to throw, you know, Kerry Hyder at defensive end opposite Bosa. Why do that? Now they're going to slide everything towards Bosa, and you're going to minimize his effectiveness. When you finally get real with adding that fourth star up front, now it's like, hey, they got to play Bosa straight up. And if you play Bosa straight up, he's going to beat you.
Absolutely. And I tell you right now, when you talk about those front four that he has, you got guys that are Pro Bowl type of caliber players. You talk about Armstead, still is pretty one of the better guys in the middle, can still get after it. Long, lanky, can make some things happen. You're talking about the Gravedigger. Vaughn can get after it too. You got Bosa and you got Chase. I'm telling you, this is on paper, you looking at these guys. Yeah, I tell you, I'd be having nightmares if I'm the Tampa Bay offensive line and I'm looking at these guys. You look at, you know, Matt, and you think about Roberts, and you think about Cody, and you think about, okay, you know, Luke, the guard. You think, wow, what am I going to be dealing with today? Because you pick your poison. Everyone says, well, I'm going to come off and I can, you know, we'll ace block and I'll help you out. You ain't trying to help out today. Today is like, you know what? I got to worry about my guy in front of me, because if you take your eyes off your work to think that you can go help and bump a guy and do those things, somebody's going to come free and someone's going to be in that backfield. So I like what the Niners have up front. You're absolutely right when you're talking about what Chase came to this team, and you brought a new swagger to that defensive line and just the team itself, because you knew that you went and got another boy dog that's going to get after it. And by the way, played with Bosa together in Ohio. I love it.
You know, I think the one thing that you're going to see in this game is that the 49ers have a major speed advantage on the outside. Tristan Wirfs is a big boy, and we're talking about huge lower half. We're talking about a guy who's 325 pounds. I mean, he's a monster body type. And then you have Gadecki. Gadecki is a brawler. He was a guard who they moved out to right tackle, and he can bury you in the run game. They don't really have the back to run it a lot, but he's a hell of a run blocker.
They want to grab you.
They want to
put their hands on you.
But I mean, those are their tackles, and both those tackles, I think the Niners should have an advantage speed-wise to beat those tackles to the edges. I'm also eager to see, you know, how well do the 49ers stand up on the back end defensively, you know, with their kind of new alignment. Now you've had, you know, you put Ambry out there last week. Last week you may have taken Jacksonville by surprise because they thought they were getting Oliver and Lenore and Mooney, and you said Oliver's coming off. and here's Ambry Thomas. Well, now the Buccaneers have the advantage of watching that film, and they know that Ambry's going to be out there. So, Ambry has had an up-and-down career. He's had some highlight reel moments, but he's also had some struggles. It's a big day for the Niners secondary.
Yeah, it really is, and they're going to say, okay, guys, what does he want to do? He said he's going to jump it so we can double move this guy. This is some of the things we're going to try to do. You're absolutely right. They've had some opportunities. But that's when you say, okay, how are we going to get to the front? What are we going to do on the front? But we understand that they understand that we're going to do that. So now we're going to sit back and play a little bit more zone. But now we're going to say we're going to act like we're going to play press man, so we're going to press, and he's thinking it's going to be a hot read. Okay, then we're going to jump back off. So now you're going to say, hey, look, we're going to line up, and it look like we're going to bring 9-10 guys in the box, and we're going to bring a corner cat, and then we're going to throw it to that hot. Well, we know he's going to try to say it's a slant because they think the corners come in and say, look, it's a slant. That slant should be in there. And you got the linebacker dropping in that zone. So look for the pick. So there are some different things you can do, that cat and mouse game. And that's what I expect this game to be, early, the cat and mouse game, until the Niners start imposing their will. And that's the thing. When you look at it on paper, the Niners have more talent. When you look on it on paper, the Niners is a more balanced team offensively and defensively. So now you got to say, let's get ahead on the sticks, but let's make them play from behind. And that's what the Niners have to do. And then it starts to clear itself out and make the game a lot easier. If you let this team stick around, they can turn into a ball game.
The one thing we know for sure is the Niners are going to see some screen passes today, and they better be able to tackle Rachaad White, or it could be a long day for Steve Wilks' defense, regardless of where he sits or stands. The Kickoff Show, presented by Habas Law. You've been wronged. Habas Law will fight to make it right. Call 1-800-INJURED or visit habaslaw.com. JD's going to join us next. John Dickinson, boots on the ground at Levi's Stadium. We'll check in with JD. There's a lot to talk about. Are the Niners on the verge of signing Jason Verrett? There's a lot of talk this week that the Niners may trade Brandon Aiyuk in the offseason. Chase Young's addition, what did that mean? We're going to see Darrell Luter today for the first time. And Steve Wilks, we'll get JD's thoughts of Wilks' move from the booth to the sideline. JD checks in with us next as we continue on. Lo Neal, Larry Krueger, we're here at the Santa Clara Hilton on 95.7 The Game.
Dell's Black Friday event is their biggest sale of the year. Shop limited-time deals on laptops like the stylish, innovative XPS 13, engineered to do it all on the Intel Evo platform. Plus, save big on ultra-sharp monitors and top-brand accessories.
At HD1 San Francisco. Always live on the free Odyssey app. Now back to the Kickoff Show on 95.7 The Game.
Well, it is a perfect day for 49er football. Larry Krueger and Lo Neal, and we're here at the Santa Clara Hilton in the Kickoff Show presented by Habas Law. You've been wronged. Habas Law will fight to make it right. Call 1-800-INJURED or visit habaslaw.com. That's HABBASLAW.com. habaslaw.com. Well, we always check in with John Dickinson, our outstanding 49er reporter who's got his boots on the ground at Levi's across the street. JD, thanks for jumping on with us. We appreciate you. And one of the stories that's starting to percolate a little bit is that the 49ers are on the verge of signing Jason Verrett, if you believe Kyle Shanahan, who told us on Friday that, they haven't finalized the contract yet, but they would like to add Verrett. And then while that happened, I was speculating that, maybe that means that Samuel Womack and Darrell Luter Jr. were not necessarily looking that great, but sure enough, they've called Luter up from the PUP, and he's active today. So it sounds like they just want to get as much corner depth as they can possibly find, huh?
Yeah, and I think at this point you can't have enough corner depth given the way things have played out and with some of the inconsistencies as far as being able to heat up the quarterback. I just think they want flexibility at the position. They want the ability to move different players around and just be protected, I think, if there is some level of injury. I think it's a real tell that the 49ers still believe, as much as they think they fixed the pass rush with the addition of Chase Young, and everything really worked in their favor going back to last week in Jacksonville. But I think they still feel maybe the area on the team that they're the most vulnerable is in the defensive backfield and is against the pass, against teams that can either get it out quick and or protect and prevent Chase Young and Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead and Hargrave and all those guys from getting home. Cleveland Farrell, who was obviously a big impact player in the game last week against Jacksonville. So to me, it's a scenario where you never can have too much depth, and the depth provides flexibility to sort of ride the hot hand as far as who your best 3 or 4 are on a given Sunday down the stretch. I think they're almost searching for their best 3 or 4 to kind of finish the season with. You put enough players in a competition, and the cream rises to the top, and you end up with 2 or 3 of them that you feel really good about.
JD, when you think about what this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team does well, they don't run the ball well. One of the worst teams is running the ball, but you have a guy by the name of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. What is the Niners' plan for success? How do you cover? How do you guard? What's the tips for that today?
Yeah, to me, it's all about heating up the quarterback. If there is one area they're vulnerable, though, that's it. And I was searching here. I spent a good chunk of the morning looking at Tampa because, one, I haven't watched them a lot. Just fully, full disclosure. Just, everybody has teams they don't end up seeing a lot. And as I was looking at the numbers and going back through their games and watching some individual plays from some of their games, it really is the wide receivers. I mean, that really is the only area where Tampa may have some semblance of an advantage, but you've still got to be able to get the ball to those receivers. And I think the 49ers are counting on the fact that Baker Mayfield won't be able to get the football to those receivers, and if he does, it's going to be off schedule, and it's going to be rushed, and it's going to be in the context of, maybe turning the football over a couple of times. So I think the Niners in some ways are going to have to live with with Evans and Godwin doing their thing a little bit, but if there's also a couple of turnovers involved in that along the line, I think the Niners will believe that they have more than enough talent on the other end of the ball to use those turnovers as momentum shifting plays and still turn this one into a blowout. I really what matchup do the Buccaneers have? Like, is there anything they can say, hey, we can do this better than the Niners? Again, maybe it's the wide receivers, but you still got to have the quarterback get the ball to them, and I'm not sure that Tampa Bay would be able to do that. There is also a little bit of a, it's silly to say this because the 49ers are coming off the bye and all of that, but this does have, and I'm sure you guys have discussed it, a little bit of a trap game feel. I think, that there was so much put on Jacksonville last week, and biggest game of the season, and they had lost 3 straight, and Jacksonville had been hot, and things needed to start happening for the 49ers. Offensively, defensively, they were whole again. They added Chase Young, checked every box in the game last week. Now, I think the attention off of that game was, hey, all right, Niners look like they're back. And then, so what do we naturally do? And I know they focus on the next game in the building and all of that, but what are you really thinking about if you're a Niner fan right now? You think about Seattle on Thursday, right? Thanksgiving dinner and all of that in Seattle on Thursday, potentially for the division lead if both teams win today, which I feel like both teams should win today, although you never know with Seattle going and playing the Rams. And then it's Philadelphia after that, with next Sunday off because you play Thursday, and then you go play Philadelphia. So, and then you play Seattle again. So to me, these next 3 games after this one project to be a hell of a lot more important and a hell of a lot more on the fan radar and on the media radar than this one today, going up against Baker Mayfield. So, is this one of those games that low-key stays close because of that? Do the 49ers maybe have a little bit of a lull but still win, but maybe it's not as dominant? That's something I'm kind of keeping an eye on for today. Just how do the 49ers come out? Do they come out committed and ready to dominate a team that I think they should be able to dominate?
I think it's a great point. Yeah, I mean, do the Niners look hungry? Do they look like they want to bury, Tampa and beat them by 40, or do they come out and kind of, look kind of flat? I mean, I think, we could see anything. One thing I liked hearing that, from some of the other defensive players this week, that they really stepped up their game to kind of show Chase Young what their standard is on defense, because a lot of that energy comes from the defensive side of the ball, and I look at that as a positive. That tells me that they're gonna fire another big effort today on the defensive side of the ball, and I think that's where it all starts. But I got to ask you about one of the subplots of the week. A lot of people starting to talk about the upcoming off season. And how it pertains to Brandon Aiyuk, who's a free agent at the end of the year. He's having a really good year if you look at the catches. Red zone touchdowns, he's only had 3 this year, but the catches have been really good, and it looks like he's going to be, due a $20 million salary. And you got to ask yourself the question. They've already signed Deebo Samuel. Are the Niners willing to commit $45 million next year of their salary cap to Aiyuk and to Deebo? Or are they going to pawn Aiyuk, for a first-round draft choice? What do you think, JD? I mean, how do you see the 49ers run the ball, and they have a lot of money on defense, on their defensive line? Are they going to do what it takes to keep Aiyuk and Deebo together, do you believe? Or are we seeing maybe the final year of Brandon Aiyuk in a Niner uniform?
Yeah, I hate that it's the conversation now because there's just so much of this season to go, and,
Sure.
and the expectations are so high. And so I think it's kind of unfortunate. Like, yeah, it's a legitimate conversation. There's no doubt. But to me, it's a legitimate conversation for the days after either the 49ers are eliminated or they go on and win the Super Bowl. But that being said, I've been on the train for a couple of years, and really since they traded for Christian McCaffrey going back to last October, I've said I don't think they're going to be able to keep both Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk. And to me, when they went and they added Christian McCaffrey, I think that gave them an option to where if they wanted to move on from Deebo Samuel, they could, because McCaffrey in some ways, is that, move around chess piece. Like they're solid in the running game. I think the Niners believed before they got McCaffrey, they weren't maybe solid enough in the run game unless Deebo Samuel was a huge part of the run game. That was always their fail-safe when they couldn't run. Put Deebo back there, and Deebo will start crashing into people with all of his physicality, and it'll help open some other things up. Now that they have McCaffrey, I think when the tough decisions have to be made, I do think it becomes maybe more of a one or the other between Aiyuk and Samuel, and maybe Samuel's viewed as a little bit redundant now that they have McCaffrey carrying so much of the load, and Aiyuk is such a complementary piece to McCaffrey and to Kittle. But I'll say this, I mean, we've seen the 49ers offense. You take one away, and it doesn't quite function the same way. And when you factor in Deebo, because he's not the same player as McCaffrey. I mean, he is a different player than McCaffrey for sure, and a different runner than McCaffrey is, both physical in their own way. But Deebo is just, I mean, he's laying hits on defenders that are felt. And so, like, to me, that's even an added level of kind of a tone-setting type deal, or an attitude as to how the 49ers want to play, which I think is important. So that would be really difficult to give up, in addition to the fact that he also can be a pass catcher and is a pass catcher at times in the 49ers offense. But the balance, of the way McCaffrey plays, with the way Kittle plays, with the way Deebo plays, with the way Aiyuk plays, it really is, in a lot of ways, the perfect balance. And you mix in Juszczyk. I don't want to leave him out low, especially talking to you.
I love you,
especially talking to you. But it's like, but they the eligibles are really complementary of each other, and I think that's why the 49ers, along with Brock Purdy, of course, spreading around and fitting into the Shanahan offense, but those pieces are so, I think, well melded together. It's why when the 49ers have had all of them this year, their offense has really looked, I think, largely unstoppable this season.
Right. And JD, I know we don't have to deal with this now, but it's just good for thought. So when you think about what you're saying and how you're laying this out, you're right. What McCaffrey does is comparable to what Deebo does. So when you say that, so you're saying who would be one, who has more trade value? Because Deebo would still be under contract. Aiyuk, you would give him a long-term deal. So you think the Niners would serve better? What gives you more value? So if they were putting you on the spot, and I'm saying, JD, you can't give me don't give me this. Just give it to me. Which one has more trade value, and which one do you think that they'd be willing to trade if it had to come down to it?
I think they'd be more apt to trade Deebo Samuel. I really do. I mean, again, it's premature, but I just think, and I think you also have to ask yourself down the line, who's easy? Is it easier to replace a guy that runs really good route? Like, look how long it took them to get Brandon Aiyuk to be Brandon Aiyuk, right? And he was in the doghouse with Shanahan and all of that, and wasn't blocking the way he wanted him to, wasn't maybe working hard in practice on. I mean, it took 3 years really to get Aiyuk to a point where that third year where it was like, okay, this guy's a dude, and then he comes back this year, and he's the guy that Shanahan wants him to be right now. To me, once you have that set, you don't want to draft somebody. And look, I'm not saying every player would take a couple of years, but you look at the 49ers it's not like they're going to have a top 10 pick. They're going to have a bottom 5, probably pick 5 or 6 in the draft. So we're talking 26 to 27 to 32, something like that. So you can get a good player there, but to me, I wouldn't want to wait around to get the tactical wide receiver, right? To get the prototypical. To me, you already have that. I think you're more apt to be able to mid-draft be able to get a guy that's maybe a little bit of a tweener, that has that dog in him, that you can do different things with. And so in a way, I think Debo, for as much as he brings to the table, might eventually be the easier to replace between the two when you look at what it takes for Kyle Shanahan to get his wide receivers up to speed. I think you can find that guy knowing you have everything else that you have, and then that would lead me toward I think you'd probably look to move Debo and believe that, does his body hold up as he gets older, and the way that he plays and all the punishment. So I think those things get factored in if you're really putting me on the spot and saying you have to make a choice.
What do you think of Wilkes moving from the booth to the sideline? I mean, obviously they got good results. I don't know how much of that was related to Wilkes' move, but what'd you think of it?
Yeah, I didn't think it was I didn't think it was really necessary. I didn't really make much of it either way. I thought, as long as he was cool with it. I mean, you knew they were going to show him 15 times during the game, but I go back to the Ambry Thomas play where Ambry Thomas makes the play of his one of the two plays I think of his career, and he's on the sideline and he's talking to Wilkes, and Wilkes is yelling at him, and they're both pumped up, and they're and obviously Wilkes being a DB guy, so those players have a special attachment to him. But I don't know, there was something to the connectivity of just those two looking each other in the eye in a big moment, and Wilkes having the ability to look some of these guys in the eye in a big moment. Maybe as the new guy, with so many veterans on this defense that are used to doing things a certain way, maybe it's just an olive branch, and not that it even needed to be done, like I said, but it's just, hey, I'm with you guys. I want to help you guys. I want to do whatever makes you guys feel comfortable. This doesn't have to be adversarial. This doesn't have to be things aren't working, I'm fighting for my job. The head coach says, hey, you got to go down there. No, this is because I think Wilkes almost, it really doesn't matter to me. I can do either. Right. I've done both. So if y'all are more comfortable with me going down there and looking you in the eye and we can have conversations, hey, I'll do it. We'll roll with it. Right, if you're happier, then you're going to perform better, and I'll adjust because I'm the OG. I'm the coach. I've been in the game for a long time. So I don't know. In that respect, I kind of liked it. I mean, you can't argue with the results, even if they were coincidental. So you might as well roll with it.
I'm with you, JD. It doesn't matter either or, and that's what Wilk is like. Hey, look, whatever you want me to do, if this make you feel better, I'll do it. I know what I can do. I haven't been in this league this long if I didn't know how to be a defensive coordinator. So the rest is just talking. It's just nonsense. It's just talking heads that got to say something to get paper clips or to get people to read it. So when you look at, though, Chase, you brought this defensive end in, this guy, he's a rental. What does he bring to the table? And what have you seen, being around the practice or being around this guy and just this defense? What are some of the things that brought to the table, in your opinion?
Just another elite talent. I mean, I was blown away, and I've watched the Commanders at I'd say a decent amount, and I know he's been had the injury a couple years back and was still trying to make his way from it. The biggest thing for me. And I know, Larry, you've been out at practice, watching a little bit. And, I mean, Chase Young is massive. I was down on the field before I came up here to talk to you guys. And he, comes jogging out to do his early warm-up. And my mouth was agape because I was like, whoa, I had no idea how just strong this dude is. I mean, huge, massive strength, and it just, I mean, it looked, my first thought was he kind of looks like another Bosa, like in a way, and in a different way. He's a little more top heavy. Not that Bosa's not strong up top, but he's he's got a little more. He's got the big, thick legs. I was thinking to myself, the Niners have two of these dudes now. Like, I mean, I was like, they have two of these guys, and so to me, it's that elite blue chip talent and body type. And again, I don't know if you're an offense going up against and you see both of those guys warming up, you're like, damn.
But JD, when you say that, so my question is, so if the Niners had Bosa, they wouldn't let him walk. If certain guys you don't let walk, you look at what the Commanders did. They let him. Why? So did they see something that we aren't seeing? Because is it just a name? Is it perception versus reality? What is it? Because certain guys that you draft, you don't let them leave. You don't let them leave the neighborhood. You don't let them leave the zip code.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
No, I think it was for him. I think it was the injuries, and I think it was some of the stuff that was reported in their building about the work ethic or engagement or whatever. I mean, again, I don't know how much of that was true versus maybe kicking a guy on his way out the door a little bit. But I think the way the 49ers view it, to me, is he's a hell of a guy to bring in as a second option, as a number 2 passer. Like, it's not like he's got to be a number 1. He could be the number 2. And obviously Sweat became the main guy as well there, and they ended up moving on from both of them. But it to me, it's the what you had to give up to bring an infusion. I mean, they were looking for the guy opposite Bosa. I mean, flat out. And to bring him in as the secondary option, I think the 49ers feel like that's just a home run to get a guy with his talent and skill set and body type, and he's the number 2. I mean, he's depth, I mean, and then I think it also lit a little bit of a fire under Cleveland Farrell. Cleveland Farrell comes out and he plays great against Jacksonville. So I think it was the quintessential low risk, high reward. You'd love to get a guy like that. The Warriors would always do this, and teams do this in the NFL too, but the Warriors love going to get high-end draft picks, when other teams kind of give. I mean, think about it over there. Andrew Bogut, number 1 pick. Andrew Wiggins, number 1 pick. Like, you go get dudes that used to be high picks, that turn into role players, and because the talent is there, it's just a matter of the fit maybe needing to be a little bit different. But anytime you can get your hands on some of that blue chip top end of the draft talent, I think in any sport, especially when you don't have to, especially when you can get it relatively cost effectively in terms of what you're giving up, I think you have to do it. And I think that's why this was such a no-brainer for the 49ers, because they're not viewing Chase Young as a savior. They're just viewing him as a helper. And it looks, at least for 1 week, as if it ignited everything, at least helped to ignite everything along that defensive line, which, had been disappointing to that point of the season.
And I asked him this week, I said, you obviously like being on a team this talented. And he's like, yeah, I mean, they can't isolate me. They can't they can't double me on this line. They can't focus on me because there's Hargrave and there's Bosa and there's all these guys. But I'll say this, man, this is also a deal where John Lynch really benefited from having a relationship with Martin Mayhew, or the Niners did, because let's look at this for what it was. Nick Bosa, I mean, if you're doing your due diligence and you're dealing with the 49ers and it's coming down, it's 2 days before the trade deadline and you're talking to them, the Niners were desperate. And you let Lynch played his cards close to the vest, and he never revealed that desperation. But they were freaking desperate. Why do I say that? Because Nick Bosa, Chris Kocurek told me in July, we can't play Bosa 70 snaps a game, 65, 70 snaps a game, or he won't make it to the finish line. Well, Bosa's got 4 games this year where he had 60-plus snaps, and it was 3 of them were the previous 3 before the deadline. His high water mark for snaps was 68 snaps against the Bengals. So he was headed towards a nightmarish, run Bosa into the ground kind of a situation. They get Chase Young. Bosa last week against Jacksonville, 37 snaps. I mean, there's a big difference. I mean, Lowe could tell you more than anything, but, I mean, there's a big difference between 37 snaps and 68 snaps.
Well, yeah, and no doubt, especially with the bye mixed in, and now you're refreshed. Now you're ready. Now you're ready for a stretch run. No doubt.
Yeah, JD, we're going to let you go, man. Give us your prediction on the game today. What are you seeing? What's your thought?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Niners 35. I'm going to say 35-17, and it's not that close. 35-17, but it's 35-10 in the fourth quarter, and Tampa Bay ends up scoring one late to make it 35-17.
All right, brother. We'll see you up there. We appreciate you.
All right, you got it, guys.
There you go. John Dickinson. The inactive list is out for the 49ers. Inactive today, Brandon Allen, Braden Willis, Kalia Davis, Jalen Graham, Ty Davis-Price, and Aaron Banks remains out with the turf toe. There's still some hope that Banks can play on Thanksgiving in Seattle, according to Shanahan. But what that tells me is that Darrell Luter Jr. is up, the rookie from South Alabama.
There we go.
You know, he's an interesting rookie, Lo, from the standpoint of this is a very mature guy. This guy's married. He has a child. His wife and child are out here with him. He played nothing. Usually, you know, you get a corner, they struggle to play press man at the NFL level. All this guy did at South Alabama for the Jaguars was stand up on the line of scrimmage and play press man. That's what he's used to playing. That's part of the reason they liked him so much. And I talked to him earlier in the week, and he said, hey, I'm excited to get out there. I'm ready. I've been waiting. This is a big corner with long arms, 33.5-inch arms, so he can reroute guys. I'll be interested to see, one, you know, since Tampa does not have a great running game, do they put 3 and 4 wide receivers on the field at times? And if they do, does Luter get some run? And if he does get some run, how does he do? It's not, you don't want to expect too much from a rookie corner because he is a rookie corner making his first start. But they love this guy in minicamp, Low. I mean, they thought he looked like the kind of guy that could step in and play big numbers of snaps as a rookie, and then all of a sudden he gets the knee injury. It turns into a deep bone bruise on the kneecap, and he's had to sit out the first couple months. But there's a chance that Luter gets utilized today, and I'm eager to see it.
Yeah, Luter, I think when you look at a guy, you think about a guy that was with the 49ers, came over from Seattle, and you know what I'm talking about, Sherm. And, he was a guy that's long, big, can play some man, get in their face, and you brought this Luter up. You brought him up today, and this is because you know what you're playing against in Godwin and Mike Evans. You got long, physical guys. You want to see if this guy can press. You want to see if he can play man and say, look, this is your job. You're going to play bump. You're going to jam them off the line. We want to take them away. We're going to cover over the top with the safety. So I think that you're going to see him get some reps in certain situations when they know that it's obvious they're going to go with him. And you're going to look to not give them the DB, that receiver, a two-way go. He's going to be saying, hey, we're going to take away the outside. Yep, your question is to take away the inside. So I want you to be physical enough that they can't just beat you at the line and have a free run. So I think that you're going to see some opportunities for this young fella.
Let's talk about the matchups that we're looking to see. To me, one of the angles that I really like, the reason I like the 49ers to win this game big today is I think the 49er defensive line, led by Chase Young, Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead. Obviously, they've got great depth behind those guys, but that's the first team line. Chase Young had a pass rush win rate last week of 24.1%, 8th best in the NFL. I love the matchup of Gadecki and Wirfs going against Chase Young and Bosa for the 49ers. I think that's a big win. I think the Niners' speed off the edge is going to bother those two big offensive linemen, and that's the number one matchup I'm looking to watch.
Yeah, I know you like that one. I tell you what, I played the running back, and I used to play linebacker. Like I said, I want to see what happens with White. How is White going to take on, if it's going to be either Freddie Warner or if it's going to be, the other linebacker, Hines 57 or Greenlaw? How are they going to play on the screen game? Are these linebackers going to go and say, I'm going to go hit this guy before the ball, even if I know that he's slow rushing and he's looking at, and I can look at his eyes and I feel screen, am I going to fire my gun and get in there and go disturb some stuff? I want to see how they do that in the screen game. I want to see how they're going to adjust, because you talked about it earlier in this show. You've been talking about it for weeks. The Niners have to do a better job of its screen game. They're getting ate up. So how are guys going to do that? Is the defensive line going to retrace and go ahead and say, look, we're not going to give him the lanes to throw those balls to. We're going to knock down some balls. But if not, if all else fails, are those linebackers are going to play some man and be able to disrupt the screen game?
Let's talk a little bit about Brock Purdy as well today. Trent Williams had a great line this week. He was talking about Brock Purdy's ascent from being, Mr. Irrelevant, picked 262nd, to being the NFL's number one rated quarterback. And it's an amazing story, really. Trent Williams' line was, it's like playing the lottery and hitting the Powerball when it's at $2 billion. Brock Purdy is the number one quarterback in QBR. And he's operating behind an offensive line that ranks 22nd in the NFL in pass block win rate. So he's doing it, and he's doing it behind a line that is not one of the NFL's better lines. And I asked Brock this week, I said, Brock, how do you balance, being smart with the football but staying aggressive? You don't want to be captain check down. That's not your mode. But at the same time, you don't want to turn it over 4 times in the fourth quarter like we saw in the games against Cincinnati and Minnesota. So how do you do that? And he's like, you know what I learned a long time ago? Don't play timid. Don't play with fear. You got to really let it rip. But you also have to have that kind of voice in the back of your head that says, be smart.
Yeah.
Take care of the ball. Occasionally hit the check down. Do what Kyle wants me to do. That striking that right chord is really what that whole position's about, right?
No question, and that's why you've seen this guy have success, and that's why you've seen him have failure. Because at times when he start letting the media and people in the outside noise get in his head, he start holding on to the ball long. He start throwing interceptions, running and scrambling with the ball, and throwing it to the other guy because he was trying to make a press, trying to make a play, instead of falling down. A la Cincinnati Bengals. They're getting ready to score at least a field goal, and he throws it to the other guy instead of just saying, you know what, I'm going to take what the defense give me, I'm going to get 2 yards, and I'm going to go out of bounds. Because he was rolling out on that play. I'm going to get 2 yards, I'm just going to fall down and line up and kick a field goal. So that's what he's talking about, is saying, I have to do that. And like Trent's saying, it's like winning the lottery. But here's the deal. You got to be in it to win it. Brock Purdy's in it, and that's why you got to win. You want to win the lottery, you got to play the lottery. And so Brock Purdy has had the opportunity to play, and he's got to be in it to win it. And that's why he's winning, because he's been given the opportunity to be the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. And all he has to do is play within himself, and he's going to continue to have success once he says, I'm going to play outside of that, and I'm going to try to do what everyone else wants me to do. You see him struggle, and he starts pushing and doing too much, because we know that offensive line is not great. It's good. You have some great players, Trent, a la Trent, but the rest of those guys are guys, and they know how to play. They know what to do. So Brock has to say, I know what they can do. I know what their strengths. I know their weaknesses. I'm going to take what the defense gives me, or when they try to take that away, I know what they're trying to take that slant away or take that outside play, I'm going here. So he's got to continue just to take what the defense give him and play within Kyle Shanahan's offense.
All right, it's time for predictions. What do you think? You want to go first? You want me to go first?
Absolutely. I think this game is 34-17. I just think the Tampa inability to run the ball with consistency, inability to keep the chains moving, I think that's going to hurt. You can't play basketball on the grass on a consistent level and win in the National Football League. I never like teams that play basketball on the grass, and that means throw the ball all the time. And I think that's what this Tampa Bay offense has to do to have success. And I don't see it happen against the Niners.
I look at Tampa as a pretty mediocre football team. I really do. I don't think they're a great team, but they do lead the NFL in red zone defense. So it's going to be a challenge for the 49ers in the red zone to score touchdowns. And then you look at the other side of the ball. Tampa is a pretty, it's just an ordinary defense in my mind, but they have an aggressive blitz rate, and it's helped them produce 16 takeaways. The big question of the day is Brock Purdy has absolutely been a better player against the blitz this year than when you don't blitz him.
Right.
So does Todd Bowles look at those numbers and say, you know what? We're not going to blitz this kid. We're going to treat him like he's Tom Brady. We're going to treat him like he's Drew Brees. We're going to treat him like he's a veteran who you can't blitz because the numbers say you can't blitz him. Or does he say, you know what? He hasn't seen my array of blitzes, and I'm going to throw all kinds of exotics his way. I don't know Bowles' personality. Is he the kind of guy that you think is going to blitz Purdy a lot and just say, you know what? My guys will get home? Or do you think they'll try something different?
I think it's going to be a combination of both. I think the score is going to dictate what Bowles has to do. If they're pressing and they got to come after you, they're going to light them up, look for them to play some cover zero and say, we got to be aggressive because they're up by 14 or they're by double digits, so we got to try to create a turnover. So he's going to say, look, we got to play man. We can't just sit back. We got to get a turnover. So I think he's going to play some zone to say, okay, we're going to sit back and play zone and make this guy turn the ball over, make him throw it through this window. This is where we want to go. You're going to have to mix it up. up, but I think a lot of it's going to be dictated by score. If the 49ers have a fast start and jump on them quick, I think that Todd Bowles has to get more aggressive with that defense.
All right, let's run down some scores one last time from around Week 11. Steelers and Browns, it's a 10-10 game with 7 minutes and 40 seconds to play in Cleveland. You were dead right about the Bears. The Bears are beating the Lions. It's 26-14. The Bears are going to pull the upset against Detroit in Detroit. And they're going to beat the Lions. They're up 26-14, 4:35 left in that game, barring a major comeback. Chargers are losing again. The Packers are beating them 16-13 with 9 minutes to play in the fourth quarter at Lambeau. Raiders are hanging with the Dolphins, but the Dolphins lead by a touchdown, 20-13 in South Florida. Giants up 21-12 on the Commanders in Maryland. Cowboys are up 30-10 on the Panthers. They're just looks like Frank Reich, that era is going to come to an end in the next couple days there in Carolina. Titans are beating Jaguars are beating the Titans 34-14. Cardinals losing to the Texans. It's 21-16.
Texans.
Yeah, how about the Texans? Bobby Slowick and D'Amico, C.J. Stroud. They've got some nice weapons. They've made some really good decisions. Sheldon Rankins was a great free agent pickup. The kid they drafted out of Bama as a player. Today they got Derek Stingley back off the injured list. Texans are real. They might be able to pull an upset in the playoffs. We'll see. And then later this afternoon, Jets and Bills in Buffalo, Seahawks and Rams in L.A., Vikings Broncos go tonight in Denver. Bengals, of course, Ravens knocked off the Bengals Thursday night, 34-20, ending the season for both Mark Andrews for the Ravens and Joe Burrow. And then the Monday nighter, Eagles Chiefs at Arrowhead, should be good. And of course, Niners and Buccaneers here at Levi's. All right.
Oh, real quick, I want to say hi to Presley and Levi. Give you a thumbs up. See you guys are little fans out there. But, hey, here's the deal. I looked at the Chargers, thought that they would lose that game because of the track meet. Talk to you about Detroit Lions, seeing what they're doing. I liked another team you saw last week with Jacksonville. They got motorboated by the San Francisco 49ers. That's why I like Jacksonville today. They have some men on that team. They got disrespected. They got smacked around last week, knew that they'd fight hard this week, and that's why I think Jacksonville was going to run through that game. So I love this. I love the NFL. Excited about to see what the Niners in Tampa Bay today. Go Niners.
Up next, we're going to hear from Peter King, who stopped by earlier this week with Willard and Dibbs and had an outstanding conversation. We're going to let you hear some of that dialogue coming up next as we continue on with the Kickoff Show presented by Habas Law. You've been wronged. Habas Law will fight to make it right. Call 1-800-INJURED or visit habaslaw.com. More straight ahead on the Kickoff Show. Larry Krueger and Lo Neal getting you ready for Niner football. 95-7 the game.
Hey, folks. This is it. The best weekend of the year for buying a TV. Forget inflation, because now you've got deflation with Black Friday pricing on top-rated brands like Samsung, LG, and Sony. Where's the best place to shop? It's not the clubs or online. Join the smart shoppers heading for video only.
Now back to the Kickoff Show on 95.7 The Game.
I do look forward to these conversations with the great Peter King, NBC Sports, Odyssey NFL Insider. His Football Morning in America column is a must-read every single week. Hello, Peter. How are you today?
What's going on, guys?
Well, everybody, as you might imagine, is feeling a little bit better around these parts. Peter, in your column, you quote Fred Warner not only talking about the rest that they got from the bye, but he used the word reflection. And then he also said to the team in the in the post-game celebration, we learned our lesson. What did you take from all that? They were reflecting on what, and what lesson did they learn?
I think they basically learned what the rest of us learned about this team, which is that if they're at full strength, they are a dangerous, dangerous team. And I think, you know what Fred Warner talked to me about, that they're physically and mentally rested. And so everybody always says, no matter when you get a bye, oh, the bye came at a great time for us. The bye came at a perfect time for the Niners, because not only did they need one more week for two of their five most important offensive players in Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel, maybe two of their three most important, but not only did they have another week to get them healed, but I also think that this team needed a little while to basically say, hey, listen, let's just take a break. We've lost three in a row. We haven't played great. We haven't played our best on either side of the ball. And look, for the 49ers to score 17 points 3 weeks in a row, something is wrong. He saw it. They all saw it. And so that's the reason to me why he said they really needed this, and he thought that they benefited mentally and physically.
And now they head into a stretch where they've got 3 games in 17 days, including a date looming with Philadelphia. If you're looking at the 49ers now, Peter, do you look at the team that is back at near the top of the NFC, or is it a team that never really left that perch?
I don't think they ever left that perch. I mean, I don't know who the best team is, but it's clear now. They've played 10 weeks in the NFL, and there's 5 or 6 teams that, to me, stand above the rest. The 49ers are one of them. Are they second? Are they sixth? Are they third, or are they seventh or fifth? I don't know. And the interesting thing is, it doesn't matter at all. It just simply doesn't matter. What matters is that if you look at the 49ers, you have a schedule that's going to be difficult. You got the Bucs at home. I don't think that will be necessarily difficult compared to what else is on tap. But then it's at Seattle and at Philadelphia. And look, at Seattle's a short week game. Every time you play the Seahawks, I don't care how good they are, it is going to be one of your most physically demanding games of the year. And for the 49ers to have to play the Seahawks this year in weeks 12 and 14, that right there is a huge challenge. And then follow that with having to chase Kyler Murray around for 4 quarters down in Arizona. So they've got a tough go, in the next month or so. But the short week game at Seattle, that's really going to be tough for them.
Peter, I want to press that conversation that you just brought up a little bit. When you say there are maybe 6 teams and we're not sure yet who the best is, and it doesn't matter. If I acknowledge all of that, but what if we asked it this way? Because all of the teams on some level have shown some sort of warts. But I wonder if we assume each of them are at their best. The best we've seen of each team, who's the best?
Well, the best we've seen of each team is, I would say, that San Francisco's the best. But I'm not sure that that's the logical way to ask the question. Not logical, but that's not the way that I would want to find the answer to who's the best team in the NFC right now. Because to me, look, the 49ers won a game at Jacksonville and just wiped out a 6-2 team, right? And then the 49ers beat a team that looked like it might be the best team in football when they played them, Dallas, and they beat them by 32 points. So at their best, they have played good teams better than anybody else has. But, you can't eliminate what happens when they are not fully healthy. And so that's why, we've talked about this 74 times this year. And why I think that part of the strategy of this season is not playing every game like it's the 7th game of the World Series. The strategy of this season, in my opinion, needs to be that if things are looking good in the course of a game, get Deebo Samuel out of there. Get Brandon Aiyuk out of there. And it's hard to say this, too, because you want to keep your quarterback in, but if Trent Williams can get a blow every now and then, in the fourth quarter of a game, get him out of there. And so that, I think, is really, really important with this team, maybe more important than it is with some other teams. But, look, I look at all these contending teams right now. I look at Detroit. I look at Philadelphia. I look at Dallas. And playing at their peak, I think the 49ers, if you take any of those 4 teams, you take their best 2 or 3 games this year playing at their peak, nobody's had a better, say, 2-game run anyway than the 49ers against Dallas and Jacksonville.
Peter King with us here on Willard and Dibs. Peter, certainly want to get a other side now conversation or comment from you about all of this Steve Wilks, Kyle Shanahan. Where should Steve Wilks be? He moves down to the sideline. And so after these 3 weeks of discussing that and looking at the comments Kyle made, what do you make of all that and just sort of the relationship that the two of those have going forward?
When I think back on the 49ers on defense since Kyle Shanahan has been coaching, I think of Robert Saleh being very visible on the sidelines, being a very hands-on coach on the sidelines during games. And I've always thought that's probably what Kyle Shanahan likes. And it seemed apparent that Steve Wilks wanted to be the eye in the sky. But look, there's 2 things I would say about this. Number one, I simply do not think it was a very big deal where Steve Wilks was, even though they played a lot better on defense. I think one of the reasons they played a lot better on defense is because Chase Young was there contributing 4 pressures and a half sack. Javon Hargrave was playing as well as he has overall as a Niner. And Nick Bosa was benefiting from both of those things, as was Eric Armstead. But I I kind of look at that and I think, I just don't think it's that big a deal. If Kyle Shanahan really wants the guy to be on the sidelines, then be on the sidelines and everybody cope with it. It's fine. But I don't think the score would have been any different from 34-3 if Steve Wilks was upstairs for that game.
Peter, great stuff as always. We thank you. We look forward to next week.
All the best, guys. Thanks a lot.
November is a great time to get a new TV. Now that the top-rated brands